Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Ryan and you're watching Collecting Casually, and we're going to get right into it with my second comic book collection haul of the year. So we're right at the end of February 2023, and I already showed you guys my first comic book collection of the year, and just a few weeks after that one was purchased, I had another hit on my Craigslist ad. In fact, a couple weeks after I picked up my first collection of the year, my Craigslist ad had actually expired. So I went ahead and renewed it and actually decided to update the pictures on the ad itself. Now, I had been using some images I found online that were, free of copyright and free to use for my ads, but I thought I'd get a little more authentic with it and use some images of my own that I had taken either of my collection or some of the collections that I had purchased in the past, just to feel a little more authentic about my ad. I don't know if it was the new pictures or what, but a couple minutes after I had posted my ad, I had somebody emailing me about a collection that they had that they were willing to get rid of. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of the messages here as well as the images that the seller sent to me. It's kind of funny. You get some really interesting images and sellers that you'll interact with if you have one of these publicly listed ads. You know, you've got everybody out there available to contact you, and you never know who's going to reach out with comics or other items that they have for sale. I don't know about you, but I was a little bit iffy on even making an offer on this purchase, but they said they had over 400 comic books in this collection, as well as some video game items and toys. Now, as you can see in these images, we have everything from comics in tubs, comics in the back of a truck, comics on a porch, comics in a zipped bag. Who knows what I was getting into? In all honesty, the images that came through were a little bit crazy. As you can see from those images, there really wasn't a lot to go off of. Sure, they showed a couple NES games in their cases, but none of them looked like they were in great shape or even had original cases with them. And who knows what all titles were actually included. I also didn't get any good images of any of the toys that were included with this lot. Now, I did speak with the seller a few times on the phone as well as through email. We found a good time that would work for us, and we decided to meet up at one of my favorite local gas stations. I really prefer to work there. It's got good lighting. There's a lot of traffic around, a lot going on there, and it's just one of the safer places that I prefer to meet. Here's some video of me on my way to the negotiation and the purchase. Let's take a look. All right, I am waiting at a gas station to meet up with somebody who responded to my Craigslist ad. This could possibly be my second collection pickup of 2023. They reached out, sent a couple of pictures, say they have about 400 comics or so. They were in like plastic tubs and like a, old traveling trunk. They don't look like they're in amazing shape. Couldn't really tell what all was in there. They didn't spread them out, list any titles or anything like that. Looks to be a mix of like Marvel, some DC titles in there as well. They also had some action figures, a couple Spawn figures, some X-Men, like Toy Biz type of stuff in there. What else did they have? Also like a couple Game Boys, original Game Boys, one of them working, one of them not. Had a couple games with those as well. So we're taking a look at a bunch of things. Obviously, I'm most interested in the comics, but we'll see what we can work out. Also, I think they had some like Mad and Cracked magazines in there as well. Yeah, we'll just wait for them to show up, see if we can make a deal on these, and we'll follow up later. Now, when the seller messaged me that they were there at the gas station, I found their vehicle and drove over to them. And when they were pulling things out of the truck, I was a little worried because it looked like things were going to fall out of their truck. They had so much stuff in there besides just this comic book collection. So once we had all of the items out of the truck and onto the sidewalk there in the parking lot, I was taking a look at them. But again, the weather was really a factor in this purchase. It started to get really windy. The temperature dropped like 30 degrees from earlier in the day. And there was even some precipitation that was about to come in. So I really had to look at this collection quickly, make an offer, and negotiate and see if we could work this deal out. So again, like when they were opening up one of the tubs of comics, one of the comics actually flew off and the cover almost all the way ripped off of it. It skidded across the concrete, got some scuffs on the cover. Luckily, it wasn't anything, a major key or anything like that. It was just a, random filler book. I don't even remember what it was, but I wasn't too worried about it. But that was one of the, again, factors leading into my quick decision on a price to offer, just to get out of there. It was freezing cold out by the time I got everything loaded into my car. So flipping through the collection, I didn't really see any books that I was super impressed with, but there was a good quantity here, right? They had over 400 comics from what they were saying, and by the looks of it, that seemed to be pretty accurate. Again, they had them in a plastic tote as well as a large old travel trunk, and then the additional items were like in a zipped duffel bag. That includes includes the toys that I ended up purchasing, as well as some video game items that we'll talk about later on. All right, so once our negotiations and price was agreed upon, I took the items and moved them over to my trunk. Now, I did have to transfer some of the items out of their duffel bag into my car. Wasn't a big deal, but it just added more excitement to the sale because of the weather picking up and it being cold out, and you know, I had to make sure things weren't going to blow away or damage any more comics while I was loading them up. And here's some video I took right after I made the purchase. Okay, well, that was quick. We made the deal. I got the tub full of comics. Got, I don't know, 5 or 6 action figures. None of them are in like great shape. They're all carded and still in their packaging, but they're kind of crumpled up. So I'm not sure really what I'm gonna do with those. Maybe like take them to the flea market or something like that to kind of flip those. Got a trunk, really actually kind of a cool trunk with, you know, like the travel stickers of like where you've been and everything. So that's kind of cool. So I'll definitely put that in the antique booth or something, give it to my wife, see if she wants to use it for decoration or something out there. But no, picked up this whole collection, paid about what I wanted to pay for it, but I haven't had any chance to flip through it and see what's in there. You know, I just did a real cursory look. It's like almost 6 o'clock and a cold front has come through, the window's blowing, so like some of these books were just like, you know, flipping open, and one of them even flew off and tore a cover. Thankfully, it's just like a trash book, so no big deal there. But I didn't have a good chance to look through this collection, but we'll get it home and take a look. So super excited to pick up my second collection of 2023. Once I got the collection home and got some dinner in me, I went ahead and filmed this quick video for social media. Okay, I got home finally after eating some dinner. I'm ready to kind of start taking a look at this collection that I just picked up. Now again, it was this full tub of comics and magazines, a bag full of toys, and like there's 2 Nintendo Game Boys, a Game Boy camera, and a Game Boy printer in there, so that's pretty cool. And then this really cool trunk with all these like travel stickers, right? Like all sorts of old stamps and addresses on them, and it has comics and stuff in here as well. Hey, look at that, truck number 1, amazing find. Just kidding. But yeah, super excited to go through this. Like I said, haven't taken a look at any of this in depth. We'll see what we came out with. So I wanted to get to sorting this collection right away. So I actually ended up doing an Instagram live video. I really wanted to do a YouTube live video at the same time, but who knew that you had to have a 24-hour approval process in order to go live the first time on YouTube. But I did go ahead and start that Instagram live video, and I went through, and I appreciated everybody that came out and watched that as I went through this collection for the first time with everybody there. I'm going to go ahead and cut over to a couple clips from that Instagram live video of me discovering some of the comics in this collection. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers here, but I did go through every single book in, I think it was 3 live sessions that first evening, and yeah, we'll take a look at it now. I do know that we have a truck number 1. Who needs a copy of that, right? You can never get enough. So I went ahead and started the sorting process the next morning, which just happened to be a Saturday morning, so I had pretty much all day to start working on sorting out this collection. I went ahead and used the family room in the basement, and I had comics laid out all around me sorting this out. Check out this clip from when I was sorting. So in addition to the comics that we're going to review here in a minute, there were also some individual items that were included. That includes, you know, some of the toys that I showed in that Instagram footage, as well as 2 Game Boy handheld consoles. Now, one of the Game Boys was really, really rough. I don't think it even has a back cover on it. I haven't taken a look at it since I got the collection, but one of them was in better shape, and the seller had mentioned that it was in working condition when I purchased it. I wasn't really sure if that was going to be the case, but with some cleaning and a couple batteries in it, it fired right up. Also included with the Game Boys were a brand new Game Boy printer and 3 rolls of sealed Game Boy printer paper. And I've actually already sold that printer and the paper to a local game shop here in town. So I actually made money back on the collection like 2 days after I had purchased it. All right, well, now that the collection's sorted, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the books that I've pulled out. Keep in mind that this collection had over 400 books in it, so this is just a small fraction of those that were in there. So the first group of books I wanted to cover were this nearly complete set of Fatal Attractions. This is that classic 90s set with the hologram covers, and it was missing one book, but we did have X-Men number 25. That's the issue where Magneto rips the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. Another small set that came with this collection were the first 3 books of the Infinity War series. And following up Infinity War were the first 3 issues of the Infinity Crusade series. Now, I love this, and if you followed any of my previous videos, you know that I'm a sucker for these 90s foil and hologram covers, so I always love getting the Infinity Crusade #1 with this gold foiling cover. Next up is this 3-part miniseries. This is Wolverine and the Punisher Damaging Evidence. I did get the full series here, issues 1 through 3. And then there was a decent sized stack of the Executioner Song series. A lot of these are actually still in the poly bags, sealed with the trading cards. So that's always a nice feature to have when you're getting these books. I love collecting trading cards as well. Now, I think I mentioned it earlier, but if not, I wanted to mention that this collector was definitely a Punisher fan. So there were a lot of, your standard Punisher runs and miniseries, but there were also actually some trade paperback books, including The Punisher, A Man Named Frank. This is kind of a westernized style story from The Punisher. Another one of those trade paperbacks that was included was The Punisher Bloodlines. And then probably my favorite of the non-standard comics was Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. Now, this is a story from an alternate universe where the Punisher is seeking to get revenge for his family that was actually killed in a superhero battle. All right, moving on to a couple individual books. First up, we had Marvel Comics Presents 74. This is a Weapon X story, and it's actually the story, or the second part of where Wolverine gets the adamantium fused to his bones. And then I thought this was an interesting issue. This is Star Trek and X-Men. It's a Paramount Comics, which is kind of a side project from Marvel. I thought it was just cool because it has a Mark Silvestri cover. Also included in the collection was Phoenix, The Untold Story. This is actually a reprint of X-Men 137, which is the kind of the ending of the Dark Phoenix saga. It actually features also a wraparound cover and 5 pages of the original ending where Jean Grey actually survives. It also has an interview with the creators talking about why the ending was changed, and it also includes a pinup of the original splash page to X-Men 138. And then if you can't have Amazing Spider-Man 129, maybe you can get a cover that has a similar story, and that would be What If the Punisher Had Killed Spider-Man. This is What If 58, and like I said, if you can't have ASM 129, why not at least have a cover that kind of looks like it, right? And if you prefer something a little cornier, how about The Punisher Meets Archie? I love this comic, right? Again, another homage to ASM 129. Also in the collection was this X-Men Classics #1. This is a reprint of X-Men number 57 and is issue #1 of a 3-part series. I thought this Versus comic was pretty cool. This is X-Men versus Dracula, Mutants versus Monsters. I don't know that the story is really that great, but I really liked this X-Men battling monsters in this comic. And this is kind of an interesting tie-in. This is Wolverine in Global Jeopardy. This is actually a partnership with the World Wildlife Foundation. We've got the little panda here that's their icon. I just thought this was kind of a funny issue to find in the collection. There were also some kind of non-superhero type books in this collection. There were actually 2 copies of Bill and Ted's Excellent Comic Book, issue #1, and they also had issue #2 in the collection. And then this is a book that I had never seen or heard of, I don't think. It's from Malibu Comics. This is Dinosaurs for Hire, issues #1 and #2. And who can beat gun-toting dinosaurs? That's pretty cool. And then maybe my favorite non-superhero type comic is The Adventures of Kool-Aid Man. We've got him busting through a wall here. This is a Marvel comic, 60 center there. I just love the Kool-Aid Man and drank my fair share back in the day for sure. Now, this collection wasn't all Marvel. There were definitely some DC titles as well as some more smaller independent titles, and I'm going to cover a couple of those now. First up is War of the Gods #1. This is from 1991 and includes an awesome George Perez cover. And I am definitely a fan of parody books. This is from Eclipse Comics. This is X-Farce #1. Obviously a making fun of X-Force Comics and all the characters there. I love these types of books. Image made some, DC I think had some as well, Marvel made a few of their own. I just love it when they can all make fun of each other. And then what comic book collection would be complete without a Wildcats #1, or I guess you could replace this with maybe a Youngblood #1, but either way, had a Wildcats #1 in the collection. Some additional Malibu titles that I wanted to highlight here were these multiple books from the Mortal Kombat video game series. Now, this is a few lines of stories, it looks like. There was just this Mortal Kombat 0 that didn't necessarily have a tagline, but then there were some Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition and Blood and Thunder issues as well. There were also some Killer Instinct comics, but I don't have them on video because I actually sent them off to a buddy of mine who was really excited to see them in the live Instagram show. He said he used to play Killer Instinct all the time, so I already bagged those up, shipped them out to him, and he has received them. So sorry, I can't show you those. I thought this independent book was kind of cool. This is from Sky Comics, and it is Joe Martin's Seeker, and it actually comes with a signed and numbered Seeker trading card, which is limited to 2,500. Now, I believe the trading card is actually within this sealed envelope that I have bagged with the comic, but I'm not going to open it up. I'm going to leave it sealed just because, I don't know, I want to keep it as it was. Like I said earlier, I am a fan of, or maybe a sucker for, those 90s hologram foil gimmick type covers, and there were definitely quite a few of those in this collection. I'm going to show you a few of them now. First up is this Transformers Generation 2 issue #1. This is actually a gatefold cover and has some chrome here on Optimus Prime's face. Just kind of a cool look there. And then we have this classic Guardians of the Galaxy #25. This is that kind of foil etched cover that you'll find in a lot of collections as well. Just a really popular book from 1992. And one of my favorites, a giant size 30th anniversary Spider-Man issue #26 with that big ol' hologram of Spidey himself on the cover. There's also quite a few of the 2099 series books, and this just happens to be 2099 AD. It's kind of that foil acetate type cover, but this is issue #1, and it actually reminds me of some Todd McFarlane type artwork, especially with this red cape and the way it's blowing around there on the cover. Then we got this dark purple Magneto #0. I really like this cover. I'm a big fan of Magneto, but I just like this purple foiling cover and technique that they used on this book. Unfortunately, some of it has rubbed off on the Marvel Comics area, but other than that, this is a pretty amazing cover. And maybe one of the more unique gimmick covers is Cyberspace 3000. This is issue #1. We've got Galactus on the cover here. And this comic actually glows in the dark. It's been treated with a few areas of glow-in-the-dark material or paint, whatever you want to call it. But it looks pretty cool on its own, but even better when it's dark and glowing. And I won't leave DC completely out of this video. We've got Robin 2, The Joker's Wild, issue #1 with a Robin hologram on the cover. All right, moving along, there were some books that I'm actually going to add to my personal collection for runs that I'm currently collecting, and that's the 1991 series of X-Men. There was a short little run here, starting with issue #20. I think it was, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24, which of course is that Rogue and Gambit kissing cover. And there was also issue #30, Cyclops and Jean Grey getting married. Some more X-Men books that were in this collection are actually from a team-up of Marvel and Pizza Hut, and that is the X-Men Marvel Collector's Edition comics. They had issue #1 and #2 in this collection. If you've checked out my social media or maybe some other posts in the past, you know that I'm a sucker for these Pizza Hut comic books. I actually picked up 11 copies this last weekend at a flea market of issue #1, and I probably have 30 to 40 of issue #1 in my collection. I don't know why. It's my guilty pleasure book. Don't DM me. But actually issues number 2, 3, and 4 have been a lot harder for me to find. I always find issue number 1 pretty regularly, and when I do, I pick it up. But issues 2, 3, and 4 have been a little harder for me to find. I don't know if they had lower print runs or what the deal was, but I'm always keeping an eye out for issues 2, 3, and 4 to add to my many number 1s. And not only were those first series of Marvel Comics teamed up with Pizza Hut in this collection, there was also a bunch of the second series, which was from 1994, and that was actually called Real Heroes. Now, this was another 4-set collection of books, and as you can see, I picked up quite a few of them in this collection. Unfortunately, there were no copies of issue number 1 in this series, but there were multiple copies of 2, 3, and 4 included in this pickup. All right, and last but not least, before we get into the key books of this collection, I wanted to share the full run of X-Men Adventures Season 1. This is based off of the Fox animated series of X-Men, and I was really happy to find the full collection of series number 1. That's issues 1 through 15, and there's actually some duplicates in here, but I was really happy to find that issue number 1 was actually in really nice shape. I think this is maybe the 3rd or 4th copy that I have of this book, but I'm always happy to add another to my collection, and I think this is a book that might gain some value once that new series comes out. There was also a couple issues from season 2 and 3, including issue number 1 from season 2. We've got a Mr. Sinister on the cover here. And then tying things back to trading cards, there were 3 issues of Marvel Masterpieces in here. It was issues 1, 3, and 4. They all feature art by Joe Jusko, one of my favorites, especially when it comes to those Marvel Masterpieces cards that he did and made trading cards so famous. I love getting these. I've got multiple copies of each one in my collection already, but I love seeing them. All right, we're at that point where we've reached what I would consider to be the major keys of this collection. Now, there were no huge comics here, right? So obviously what we've seen in this collection has been mostly 80s and 90s books. We're not going to get any silver keys or anything like that out of this collection, but I was happy to see a few of these books, including New Mutants number 87. This is the 2nd printing, but it is the first appearance of Cable. Next up is the Incredible Hulk number 377, and this is, again, a 2nd printing of this book. Too bad it wasn't the 3rd printing. It has a lot more value, but this is the first appearance of Professor Hulk, and I'm happy to add this book to my collection. It's one that I didn't have previously. Definitely can't go wrong with another copy of X Factor number 1. All right, and here are the last 2 books from this collection, and the 2 that I was most excited about. Again, when I was looking through this collection in the parking lot, I didn't see any of these key books. All I saw were these, run fillers and random titles here and there. So that's why I went in with such a low amount in my initial offer to the seller. But thankfully, there were some keys in this collection. You've seen a few of the minor ones. And second to last in this collection is Infinity Gauntlet number 1. Just this amazing cover by George Perez. Unfortunately, there weren't any more of the Infinity Gauntlet books in this collection, but you know what? If I had to get one out of that series, number 1 is going to be the one I'm most excited about. All right, and last up is a book that I had yet to add to my collection, but I was always keeping an eye out for it if the price was right, and we've seen a lot of these books in the collection so far. He's definitely been in many runs in this collection, and I don't think it'll be necessarily a surprise that Punisher number 1 from the Unlimited series was in this collection. Now, this book is in really great shape. I'm actually thinking of having it cleaned and pressed. I don't think it needs much cleaning at all, but maybe just a little bit of a press. There's maybe a small spine tick that I can see here, but otherwise this book is in really amazing condition, especially considering how these books were stored for who knows how long, as you saw in the pictures that the seller sent to me. All right, so how much did I pay for this collection? Now, initially, I looked at this collection in the few images that they had sent over. I wasn't really excited about the collection, but I went ahead and met up with them anyways. Who knew what else I might find in the collection? They said they had some toys, some video game items, and 400 comics. So I was hoping I could look through more of them at the meetup. Unfortunately, weather became an issue, right? With the wind and cold weather, I think everybody was just looking to get the deal done. So I initially offered them $100 for this collection. Again, it was 400 comics, but I didn't see any of these key issues when I was flipping through it. So I thought, hey, this might just be a pile of junk books that I'm getting. But there was also 2 Game Boys. They said one of them worked. You know, couldn't test them. They didn't have batteries, so I was going off of their word. There are a few NES cartridges, but no major titles. So really, it was a gamble. And all the toys that they included in the lot were crumpled. You know, they were still in the packaging on their cards, but they were really terrible condition. So my initial offer was $100. They countered back at $150. Unfortunately, I only had 20s with me. I had gotten some change right before I met them, but it was all in 20s. So I countered back with $140 and they took that offer. All in all, I think that was a fair offer to make, $100, because again, I didn't see any of these books in the collection. And not knowing if any of those games or handhelds worked at all, you know, they could be just giving me all their junk and I'm giving them $100. You know, they bumped it up to $150, which I didn't think was too crazy of a counter offer. And I was happy that they took the $140, and I think that was a fair price for this collection overall. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for my second comic book collection haul of 2023. I didn't think it would come so quickly behind the first collection purchase, but you know what? It was exciting. I didn't pay a ton, so I'm just going to keep saving up, selling some of these books and some of the other items to afford more collections in the future. Again, I sold that Game Boy printer and the paper right away, so I've already made some money back on this collection, and I actually sold a bunch of books at the local flea market this last weekend, so I keep getting into the green on this collection. And as always, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I plan to make more videos like this in the near future. And if you've ever picked up a collection, let me know what sort of dealings you've had with sellers. Maybe have you had to encounter any inclement weather like wind or cold temperatures and you just had to make a negotiation based off of maybe the pictures you saw? Let me know in the comments below. All right, as always, I appreciate you watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next.